Hi guys, it's Anecdote Radio King, and today I'm here with Michael from the ZOO, a legendary rock and roll station from Texas. So he's going to tell us a bit about his radio project from the beginning to how he organizes his music, and he's even going to share a piece of advice for any of you who are looking to launch your own radio station. Let's dive right in.
So my name is Michael Wilson. My friends, they call me Wildcard. I got that nickname for making rash decisions that really don't benefit anyone. It's kind of a nice moniker to use to kind of allow people to have a little bit of fun with their life. And the radio station's all about that, entertainment. I got involved in audio and video remastering several years ago, and that's kind of how I got started with the station. I was doing this audio-visual footage, this old concert video footage from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And I was trying to figure out how to attract younger people to this music. One of the things I figured out was that they wouldn't watch the standard definition video or audio. They were so used to high definition in their lives that they just wouldn't give it a time of day. So I used the latest AI technology and remastered that. I have a huge library of classic rock footage from all over the world. And that kind of started me down this journey. And around 2014, some of the old DJs from this old terrestrial radio station that was here in Dallas, they decided to bring the station back. And they partnered with this media company and got involved. I got involved in that process as well. As an early sponsor for their station. And so I, at the same time, was doing my video remastering. I decided to turn that into a show that I could do at venues. And so the audience could use their phone and they could interact with it, and they could control that lineup of artists that would appear on this high definition screen. And I named the show the ZOO after this famous radio station we have here. Well, as things went along, it turned out that the show was a promotional vehicle for the station. Over time, I got more and more involved, got to know the owners very well. And when the time came, I had a bunch of ideas to make the station better. The time came in 2023 that I had made an offer for the station, and they accepted it, and I took over the ZOO. So I guess I'm the ringleader of the circus that we have. And that's kind of how all of that started.
So you said that you had a couple of ideas to make the radio station better. What were a couple of those ideas?
So one of the things was that the old radio guys, they're from terrestrial radio. So they do things like day part programming. You know, you have a locale, your audience is very localized, and your DJs have to come into the studio to do their 4, 6, 8 hour shift. And so everything was very localized. The advertisers came in under those same situations. And what I realized is when we're streaming worldwide now, there's different time formats for everybody. So day parts kind of don't work anymore. So what we did was we created these shows, and a show could be 3 hours long or it could be 10 minutes long. And then we need a way to schedule all this so that it happens at interesting, odd timings to keep the audience interested. And so we found the Radio King software was one of the platforms that we could use to do that. We actually looked into several platforms, and we settled on Radio King because really the features, there were a lot of features that we could use, and they were easy to use. One of the things we really liked was a goal of ours was to stream everything in high definition, and Radio King gave us the capability to do that. So that was an essential part of it. And I would say probably the reliability became the big indicator for us. We've been on the air for almost 2 years now with Radio King continuously, and we really haven't had any downtime. A few maintenance windows, things like that, which are pretty common, but for the most part, Radio King handled it very well, and they're always there to support us when we need them.
Can you tell me a bit about the planning process of your content?
Yeah, we do it. Most of the stuff that we do is on a weekly basis. So we, like I was saying a minute ago, we have these shows, and we program those throughout the day, throughout the days of the week. All of those things we use, all those different calendar events that we use. We usually do that at the beginning of each week for the entire week. But of course, if it's a holiday type of show or something, we usually start that, months in advance of planning and putting that together.
What do you enjoy the most about this project?
Well, probably just the fact that we get to hear from some really amazing people that listen. So because we were a terrestrial radio station back in the day when Zeppelin and the Stones and all those bands were our age, or your age, I should say. They were my age then, they're your age now. But because of that, many of them listen to the station today and they contact me and let me know. And it's a real thrill when these giant icons of rock remember the station, listen to it today, and tell us how much they enjoy it. But it's a real thrill to know that we're making a difference and that we're passing on the rock and roll sound to the younger generation. It is still very much alive and growing. So there's a lot of new artists now that they may sound like the Stones or sound like Zeppelin. They've got their own thing they do, but we support all those young artists. So we're not just about classic rock or old music. We're really about that style of music. So if you think about the Rolling Stones or Eric Clapton, all those guys, we called it the British invasion when they came over. But actually, they brought the Memphis blues. They brought the Southern blues that we had created. They had the records, and they brought it back to us. And we accepted them and embraced them. But really, they didn't bring us something new necessarily. They brought us something that we were accustomed to. So that whole sound, the rhythm and blues, rock and roll, that stuff kind of doesn't ever get old. And so we want to support the new versions of those artists and do the same thing that we did before, provide that entertainment for the world. So we're real excited that all these young people listen to our station.
What would you say makes radio stand out from streaming platforms like Spotify?
Yeah, I think there's probably a couple things. I mean, one is that you got to remember Spotify is really kind of part of the mass personalization. It's really a utility of music. It's a giant music catalog. So they're more concerned about you having a personal relationship with them than communing with the music. Music is kind of made to be enjoyed together. That's why concerts are so popular. Radio gives you the ability for people to be listening to the same thing at the same time, not their own personal playlist. So I think that's very isolating when they do that. And I don't think it's how music is supposed to be shared and enjoyed. It's a celebration of life and connecting people together. And that's the way we were made. We really want people to enjoy the music and kick off their shoes and let down their hair and just, have some fun.
Is there something that you're particularly proud of that you can share with us?
We actually take the time to take the original album version of the songs, not the radio edits. Sometimes we can't find them digitized, but digitize them ourselves. But we'll take the original artwork of the original albums as well. If you listen to classic rock today, they'll play the same 200 or 300 songs, and they play them from the greatest hits albums. So the cover, you see Queen greatest hits, the Rolling Stones greatest hits. You just see the same cover art because they don't care. They're not thinking about the fact that back in the day when they first released it on the first album, they put a lot of work into the album art because that's all they could give you. They couldn't make a Facebook post every day. They had one album, they would do one album a year, every 2 years. And so that cover art was all you had. So we'll go back and get the original artwork and we put that on because we want the young people today to get the same experience that we had, because that's kind of all that stuff gets swept under the rug with technology. Young people don't think about the original album because they don't ever remember seeing it. They only saw the greatest hits album. So that's something we're proud of because it takes a lot of time to source that and do that for every individual thing. We have 10, 20,000 assets to manage. So it's a massive amount of content. We think that's part of what we want to give somebody, which is the experience. There's a lot of people in the world, we found out, that want to know what it was like to listen to Texas radio back in the 70s and 80s. There's this interest people have in, like, what was it like to have this freeform radio and with all the attitude of Texas? And, we have a lot of attitude here. And so people want to tap into that of all generations. They want to know what it was like. And so you can listen to the station and you can We have the old DJs on there, we have the new DJs on there, we have old bits on there and new bits on there, but stuff that is actually authentic stuff that was happening. We have the old radio commercials or old shows. There were times when, I mean, bands like Queen, for example. Everyone knows who Queen is, right? So when they first toured to Dallas in the early 70s, they came as an opening act for Bachman Turner Overdrive. So you may not even know who that is, but they're pretty popular, but not nearly what Queen became. So Queen comes over, and when you hear the radio ad for the concert, you say, introducing this new little band from England called Queen. And they don't even have any songs to play on the presser because, they didn't do any albums yet. This is before any of the stuff they did, right? And so the tickets were like $6 to the show. It was at the local college, and Queen played there. And so when you hear that ad now, it really gives you a sense of like the history of like, wow, nobody even knew who they were, and then they eclipsed all the bands, so it's like, it's interesting when you hear this stuff. So that part of it is this kind of like living rockumentary that we want to create. It's a lot of fun for people of all ages to just kind of experience. And I think we're the only station in the world that's doing that. Advice I would give to others that, want their own station, right? That would be watching this is that you're absolutely right, is that, radio is kind of this changing art form. It is an art form. And in the culture we're in today, kind of the social media culture, you have to treat it differently than what radio used to be. So even though we have some experience with radio in the old days, it doesn't translate today. So it has to change. And I would say one of the problems with radio today, most of the big radio stations have been conglomerated into one or two corporations that most of them are failing to make any profit. It doesn't work. It's kind of broken. And what I would say is that you're trying to create something unique and then see who gets attracted to it. And you can't let your listeners, your advertisers, anybody control what you're trying to do, right? So it's not about I'm trying to get the most listeners I possibly can. That's the wrong approach. It's really create something unique and see what it attracts. So you really don't know how big it's going to be until you do it. So it's not the kind of business model that most people want to undertake.
Yeah,
I would say that. So it definitely has to be a passion of yours. I mean, a radio station is no different than an artist. It's an art form, and we have to be true to our art, right? And so that's very hard when you need to make money and you have advertisers coming in, and it's a problem. Same thing with guys telling them how to do their records and stuff, so it's quite challenging, but it's a lot of fun. So we actually, one funny story, anecdote to tell you is that early on, I got a call from a big radio consultant, and he says, I've been listening, and one thing I will tell you is I heard early in the morning you've been playing like this hard rock stuff in the morning. And in the morning, you really should play kind of smooth, easy stuff for people to get up and get started on their day or whatever. And I said, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And hung up the phone. And then I called one of our voiceover guys. I said, I want you to do a spot for us for the zoo. And the spot turned out to be him saying, so this fancy pants radio consultant called us and told us that we should only play mellow music in the morning. So here's another mellow song. And it was some AC/DC or something, but it was like, to me, that's part of what we do. It's like, we make fun of everything. We make fun of ourselves, everybody, that's the whole point of living in the world we live in. If you can't laugh at what's going on, it's very depressing.
What's next for the zoo?
What we'd like to do is get back to the days of promoting concerts and events for these young artists. So get back to supporting them so that they can make a living traveling and doing their music. The music industry is not doing that. So they're more interested in streaming fees and manipulating their catalogs to benefit their bottom line. That's not real. That doesn't sound very musical, does it, when you say it that way? It sounds very cold and calculating, which it is. But really what you need to do is we want to get out there and support these young artists on their tours. And we're starting to do some of that where we're helping to promote their tours as they come through here. And eventually as we grow, we can do that in other areas as well. So that's kind of the model we used to do. That's kind of what we were. And so we're going to try to get back to that.
Thank you so much, Michael, for taking the time to share your radio journey. You guys can find all the links in the description box below to listen to the zoo.
Great. Thank you, Annalise. I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome.